right, everybody, are you ready for the second half? This side gets it. They get it. 100% gets it. So we're going to have an exciting second half. I hope your bellies are full, but don't go to sleep. I hope you had a lot of veggies and not a lot of the chicken so that you can kind of stay up and keep it moving. But I would like to actually let you know what's going on next. So what's going on next is that we are going to have Laura Roantree, Director of Cloud Security, Product and Partner Marketing with SentinelOne come. We have talked several times about collaboration. We have talked about making sure that we're actually working together. And here, this session is going to explore key considerations for removing silos. How many of you all want to remove silos within your technology team, within your teams? All right, so we're going to actually welcome to the stage, give her super energy. If I see someone sleeping, I'm going to start throwing stuff at them. No, I'm not. We're not doing that. But Laura, please, everyone give a round of applause for Laura as she comes to the stage.
Thank you. Ooh. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking around after lunch, especially if you happen to see that I have marketing in my title. I really, really do appreciate it. So my name is Laura Roantree. I work in product marketing at SentinelOne, but I promise not to give you any product pitches. In fact, I wish some of my sales guys weren't in this room because they're not going to like some of what I say. That's okay. We're going to talk about eliminating silos and enhancing security when it comes to cloud security. I'm super passionate about cloud security. I think it's one of the most exciting and dangerous spaces, right, that we're trying to protect. I am based in Ottawa, so I'm excited to be in the big city. I grew up in the SaaS world. I like to joke that I started in internal audit, which nobody likes. Then I went to HR tech, doing annual performance reviews, also not a popular internal service organization. So now I'm in security, right, which is even maybe more popular with some groups. But yeah, my job is basically to talk to customers, to prospects, to folks internally who are interfacing externally, to industry analysts, and to consume a ton of information so that we can better serve, protect our customers so that we can articulate what's going on when it comes to cloud security. So we're going to talk about the state of cloud security, why the silos exist, some ideas for the way forward, and then we'll wrap up with key takeaways. And let's acknowledge it. My job is kind of like sunshiny. I get to read about it. I get to talk about it. You folks have to live it. You're accountable for it. So I really appreciate that you're sticking around to listen to me. I don't know that there's going to be anything groundbreaking in this talk, but maybe it'll give you 20 minutes to kind of step back and think about cloud security and how you're going to build or reinforce strong foundations there. So this is the ongoing threat landscape slide. I would lose my marketing card if I did not present this. But we know that ransomware is a huge concern. There is hardly any downside to being a criminal trying to get these payouts. I think in 2022, they figured it was about $800 billion US had been paid in ransoms in the US. And in Canada in particular, it's really interesting and heartbreaking. The attacks against public institutions, you know, we're seeing it against hospitals, we're seeing it against school boards, libraries, right? And cloud threats are increasing too because it's the low-hanging fruit. They're complex. It's very attractive to adversaries. And then we also have security complexity. Hello from a vendor, right? We're all here playing in this space, and there are tons of them available. We could also talk about talent shortage when it comes to SOC or security expertise, and I would say that cloud security is probably one of the niche areas as well where there just isn't expertise, and things are changing so quickly in that space that it's nearly impossible to be an expert the whole time. So the state of cloud security specifically is that usage is growing. Gartner estimates that by 2025, which is next year, if you're struggling with that 2024 like I am, that nearly 95% of all new digital workloads are going to be deployed on the cloud, which is up from 30% just in 2021. Cloud security needs are growing. In a recent survey of about 500 security professionals, nearly 90% of organizations expect to spend more on cloud detection and response this year. And customers like yourselves are looking to consolidate tools. I think it's ambitious, but they're predicting that they'll go from 10 tools for cloud security to 3 by 2026. And this is kind of the thesis of this talk. Cloud is blowing up, very popular. Folks are using it for a number of different reasons. Great. The current approach to cloud security is not working. I'm a little scared, even as a vendor, that the thought is let's spend more. If it's just blindly let's spend more because what we're doing isn't working. Because tools are not the only answer, right? When I worked in HR tech, we would say a fool with a tool is still a fool at the end of the day. But tools are not the only answer, and there is no one tool that is going to solve your problem. Why is cloud the low-hanging fruit? Well, 95% of organizations are worried about cloud security, and that's because only 1% of organizations surveyed last year did not experience an attack. We've got the most valuable data living in the cloud and the least mature security approaches, I would say. It's a perfect storm. The top causes of cloud security incidents continue to be misconfigured resources and compromised credentials, two of which kind of have a human element, as well as vulnerable web applications. And what happens when there's a cloud security incident? What's the impact to an organization? Besides, obviously the reputational damage and the financial cost. There's the ransomware, there's resource theft, there's data theft. I think resource theft is so fascinating. There was a public incident on AWS where I think they drove up a $45,000 Lambda bill, just in AWS Lambda, which is pretty cheap to run one time, to get $800 worth of crypto. Like, it means nothing to them. These attackers, there's so little risk, and you just have to pay for it. So, right, there are so many tools, and I love the picture of this guy laughing maniacally, like, we have so many options. I was trying to get a sense of how many cloud security tools are there actually available in the market? Like, what does the market landscape look like? So I went on AWS Marketplace and just looked at the security category. This was 2 weeks ago. There were nearly 4,000. I bet we're even closer to 4,000 this week because we just keep churning out more tools, I guess, more offerings at this point. And I don't say this because vendors are money hungry. I've been so lucky to work for vendors who care so much about protecting customers. We take it deeply, deeply personally, and we've gathered some of the smartest people to try and solve this problem. So it's not that the technology vendors aren't trying. It's just that it's not, it's not only a technology problem. And I laughed when I was researching this topic. I found a Cloud Security Alliance blog that's from 2011. Will the cloud cause the reemergence of security silos? They had an optimistic take. I think it actually did bring about more silos than it got rid of. So why? Number one is the rampant growth. In most organizations who were not digital native or born in the cloud usage started by a couple of nerds who heard about it, thought it was cool, and started maybe using an S3 bucket. They probably didn't tell anyone in the organization they were doing it, right? Shadow IT in the cloud. And they were probably paying this bill on their credit card and expensing it or not. it went from this little cool side element of some people's jobs to being incredibly important infrastructure and a huge line item in operating costs for most businesses, even businesses that you wouldn't typically think of. I'm a huge public library user. As someone who travels a lot for work, I love that I can access digital books online. But that is not a library's core competency. The thought of a library having to have a cloud security strategy, I don't think they would have been able to predict or plan for that. And that's just one example, right? So not only has it grown really quickly and become an integral part of many businesses, we've also got these complex multi-cloud environments, because probably the couple of nerds on one side of the floor chose AWS, and a couple of other nerds on the other side of the floor chose Azure, and then those became really core to your web applications, using the unique microservices and microsegmentations that are only available in each cloud. So then we end up with this complex environment, let alone your legacy or your on-premise environments, and each one of those has different native controls and requirements, different wording on the policies. Of course, all of the cloud service providers have the shared responsibility model, which basically says cloud security is your problem, which is lovely. They'll also say, I think 95% of cloud security incidents are the customer's problem. It's fine, it's defined as long as we know how to work with it. But how to configure that same policy across all of your cloud environments is really challenging in however many cloud languages you're using, right? So then we end up with disparate and disconnected tools focused on typically prevention. There are very few cloud security tools out there that are active in terms of response or remediation. We're getting better in that space, absolutely, but historically, it was very much about trying to prevent anything from happening. And now we're up against machine speed attacks, right? So much is automated. SentinelOne has a really cool blog about Log4j, I think it's Log4j, and how this incident that we found through our managed service seemed to be completely automated, like no human intervention. It was all run on scripts and just scraping the web. And then, of course, we've got cloud security split across different teams. How many of you would say you have one team responsible for cloud security? 2 teams, 3 teams, it's all over the place. And without clear objectives and ownership, it causes tension between teams as well. There's a little bit more finger pointing and a lot less active remediation. Is Silo City in the cloud a bad thing? Absolutely. It is very challenging to get a really strong read on your cloud security posture these days. There is an overall lack of collaboration reported by most organizations using the cloud, particularly who are not super cloud mature. And there is subcultures of often insecurity, because people are thinking, my mandate is to go fast. Nobody's told me my mandate is to go secure. Or I don't know how to prioritize this. Nobody's ever talked to me about when to make the tough calls, how to communicate them, how to document them, that whole piece, which leads to horrifyingly inefficiencies in incident response, right? Longer mean time to detection and response, longer dwell time, higher costs. So the costs of cloud incidents are going up because we're living in this siloed world. So how can we start to get strategic about cloud? And I'm calling it cloud, not just cloud security. How many of you have a cybersecurity strategy? I would guess most of you have a cybersecurity strategy. How many of you have a cloud strategy? And if there is one that exists, just cloud. Why? How? When does your organization use cloud? Which cloud? How integral is it to your business? A lot of organizations do not have a clearly defined cloud strategy. Gartner did a paper on this and defined what a cloud strategy should look like. And I think this is where we're kind of misaligned, is that your cloud security strategy has to support your cybersecurity strategy. Everything's connected now. It's no longer its own little thing. There are downstream and upstream applications talking to each other that are very hard to track. But it also has to support your cloud strategy as well. And it's hard to define what that cloud security strategy will be without clearly knowing your cloud strategy. When we talk about cloud security strategy, it doesn't need to be this nice book like we've got here. Sorry if you're here, but last year I talked to a guy in Chicago. I said, hey, what's your cloud security strategy? And he said, pray and pay. and that's because cloud wasn't integral to their business. It was a means to an end for them, and they knew what they had in there, and they, fingers crossed, and they did the bare minimum and paid to get their insurance, right, and paid the premiums. So that broke my heart, but I'm like, hey, they thought about what worked for them and what the risk profile was for their cloud usage, and that was their strategy at the time. He wants to evolve it, but we got to work where we're at today. So I said I worked in the HR space, right? I'm a little touchy-feely that way. So when we think about eliminating silos, technology is one part. Absolutely. We need to get away from 10 tools for cloud security. Yes. But more importantly, I think the people and the process need to be included here, right? It's a little much, but processes fail because people aren't part of them. When change happens, people want to be part of the change. It's not something that should happen to them. It should happen with them whenever possible. So when it comes to the people piece, who owns cloud security is maybe the hardest question. If you're the security leader in your organization, it might be you who's accountable to your board or your CEO for the cloud security. But it's not just on you. It can't possibly be just on you. So I put into ChatGPT, my feelings around who owns cloud security. It's this faceless, nameless individual that makes marketing to cloud security folks really challenging. But I think this is representative in a lot of organizations. We're not exactly sure who owns cloud security. And I would argue that as much as if you're the security leader, you're accountable at the end of the day, it needs to be a team approach. Because nobody wants to be the person who accidentally causes a breach. Nobody wants to be the jerk, bad actors aside, right? But they need to be a part of designing the solution. So creating a team and defining ownership and a cross-functional team, including any representation for any team that might impact your cloud security posture or impact the people who are touching your cloud security posture, right? Who are the drivers? Who are the customers of folks? I don't know, sales teams are incredibly pushy. If they're trying to push me to get something done that may be insecure, I need them to be aware of why I have certain constraints or the context of my decisions. Defining clear objectives for your cloud security strategy and your team, how you're going to measure it, and getting a good baseline, also really, really important. Cloud security training for all, building that culture of security. And I think where we fall down on this is that security training has a bad rap, right? We're all probably taking the same prepackaged SCORM course that we've sent to our HR training team and clicked through. Your development team, your developers, your DevSecOps teams, they need different training than you're giving your inside sales teams or your customer support teams. They just have different interactions, and it needs to be about upskilling versus blind mandatory training. Then we also need ongoing management, feedback, communication, and collaboration. I often joke that I think the C in CISO should stand for communication and collaboration. You should get a few more C's because it is such a challenging job. So continuously assessing and improving your strategy with that cloud security team is the only way that that's going to get embedded into a process that gets adopted versus done for a while until no one is looking, right? But developers don't care. This is a tired narrative, I'll say. There is, of course, that natural tension between speed and security. There are times maybe when an organization's survival depends on getting a latest release out. That sucks, but it happens. I get that. But developers do care. They just need to understand how to prioritize security and understand the expectations. What's really cool these days is a lot of job postings for developers, standard DevOps, DevSecOps, have some element of security in them, which is awesome. Awesome to set that expectation up front, but we need to make sure that they have the training and the understanding to actually deliver on this. Most developers did not go to school to be security experts. That's not their core competency. It's not necessarily what drives them. But most of them are really smart, curious people who don't want to be the one who caused a problem. So if you're able to involve them in that conversation, have that seat at the table, have them help design the process they're expected to use, it's going to go a lot further. They're typically very smart and opinionated problem solvers who will come up with something that, I could never propose. This is a QR code to a really cool AWS reInvent talk that my former colleague Madeline did. She was a development leader for multiple squads. And she talks about the mind of a developer and what's going on, be it what they're having for lunch, or how they're going to fit in yoga, or did they feed their cat. It's a really cool look inside her brain. And one of the stories she tells is about adopting threat modeling as a developer. She was so opposed to this. She thought it was horrifying waste of time. It's taking away from her time to develop or build cool new applications. But she did get on board, and she actually spent an afternoon sitting with a member of the security team. And we were both working at a security vendor, too, so she has to think about security in some contexts, even beyond her day-to-day work. But she talks about that experience as being so positive and helping her understand her role in making sure things were secure. And she went back and taught her whole team about it, and they implemented it into their process for certain milestones in delivery to do threat modeling for the apps they were building, which is really cool. Process. Okay. Automate, automate, automate. If it can be automated, let's give it a go. And I didn't put anything specifically in here about AI. I think generative AI is going to have an impact on this space, right? But it's so new that we don't have like a year's worth of data to look back on yet. So we're talking about this like it's not fully baked. I think in a year's time we'll know a lot more. But anyhow, cloud security governance, knowing the policy and the standards across all of your cloud environments and how they work with your legacy or on-premise environments, super key. DevOps and security as code, get those into your build processes if you're building applications. Back to audit here, regular security audits and posture checks. If you're not using a cloud security posture management tool right now, or you don't maybe know where you're starting from, so many vendors offer a free check where you can just connect your accounts and kind of understand where your biggest risks are to date. So I would absolutely recommend that if you're not doing it already. And then validating, testing, and implementing all the way from developer to CISO. Like run the model, run a plant, test it. Are you getting the information you need? Is the risk being remediated? We need to make sure that it's still running the way we designed it. Okay, technology, probably where you thought I would talk most about, but I'm going to talk the least. This is from, I think, 2018, maybe 2017. This is the cybersecurity map as put together by a channel partner. If a tool could solve this, we would not be here. We would all be, I don't know, somewhere warm and sunny and not stressed out at all. So no one tool is going to solve your problem. I just talked about CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management, being a pretty cool tool, but it's been around for years. This is not a new notion. It's now kind of embedded into cloud-native application protection, which is cool. We're getting into consolidation, but misconfigured resources is still the #1 cause of cloud breaches. That's kind of the bread and butter of CSPM. So if a tool could solve our problems, we wouldn't have problems. So centralize your data sources and monitoring. Create an inventory of your data, consolidate your data sources. I think security data lakes are a really exciting evolution kind of that data management. And things like the open cybersecurity schema framework that cloud vendors and cloud service providers and others have kind of standardized how we're pulling data in, that's really going to make a difference for us. When you're pulling in all this data and you're pushing alerts, don't let your teams drown in the noise. We used to talk about SOC analysts drowning in the noise. Now we're seeing DevOps teams drowning in pull requests, right? Fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this. Tools need to help them prioritize when they otherwise can't. Otherwise, they're going to ignore it all, right? Just like the pop-ups we ignore on our computers asking us to update Chrome every 2 days. We just ignore it until something bad happens. Implement DevOps and security as code. Fix things before they're deployed. Use SaaS, DaaS, whatever works in your process. Here's the biggest piece here. Please include all of your stakeholders in your proof of concepts. Don't let procurement teams or sales teams push you into something that has not been tested for your organization. There is too much shelfware, way too much shelfware in the world, and too many times where we have said, oh, hey, dev, can you just deploy this to all of your cloud workloads or deploy it to all of your repos, thinking maybe they have a few, and it's thousands or hundreds of thousands. And test the tech with the people and the processes. The technology is there to support your strategy. You shouldn't be building your strategy around the technology. So, cloud security strategy has to support your business strategy, your cloud strategy, and your cybersecurity strategy. You need to have the right folks involved from the beginning. Otherwise, it's going to turn into something that feels like it's working against your business versus for it. And your processes and technology have to support the people and the goals of the program. And there's not one solution. It's based on your organization and your needs. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.